Hey, I'm Caitlin from Adapt and Grow, a Richmond-based company that me and my good friend Becky started last year to help educate parents on the ways to best help their children, especially in this ever-changing virtual world. Becky and I both practice as occupational therapists by day, working in pediatrics, and so we have a lot of background knowledge on neuroscience and sensory needs and child development and reaching milestones. And so our mission is to help parents learn the things that we know so that they can best help their children succeed. Today, I want to talk to you about the 8 senses. And you might be saying, wait. I know the 5 senses. We all learn the 5 senses in school, right? So we have our sight, our smell, our taste, our hearing, and our touch. But there's actually 3 more senses that are really important to understand as we work with children and helps us to understand their behaviors. So those other 3 senses that we're going to talk about today are proprioception, vestibular, and interoception. Let's start with proprioception. Big word, super cool sense. Proprioception tells us where our body is in space. The receptors for this for proprioceptive input are in our joints and muscles. So bear with me for a second. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to put your hands in the air, and I want you to wave them around like you just don't care. Okay. Hopefully your hands are in the air and you weren't touching your hands together or touching your head, but you just knew they were there, right? Your brain knew where your body was in space. And it wasn't through our touch sense. It was through our brain having a connection with our muscles and joints to coordinate our body to do that movement. When you just put your hands into the air, you can feel that they're up there, you're pretty sure. But when you shake them around, you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly where they are. Okay, they're around like 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock. I know exactly where they are in space. So when we shake or move or crash or do big movements, we get a lot of extra proprioceptive input, more intense input to our body. This helps to explain why young children, especially as they're learning to coordinate their body, use big movements. They run, they crash, they push, they pull, they jump, they climb. All of those kinds of activities provide a lot of proprioceptive feedback to the body that helps them learn to coordinate their body in new ways. Movement input is also really regulating to the central nervous system. So if I'm feeling really anxious, personally, I might go for a walk or a run. Or if I'm feeling really sleepy, I might get up from my desk where I've been doing virtual OT for quite some time to go get a drink of water. So proprioception is this magic sense that really helps us kind of calibrate our regulation level. So if we're feeling sleepy, we use some movement to help our bodies wake up. And if we're feeling fidgety and agitated, fidgeting is proprioception. That helps bring our level down as well. It helps us calm. So we love proprioceptive input as occupational therapists. We really consider movement as medicine to help our bodies learn and regulate and all of that. So that's proprioception. Next, let's talk about vestibular input. Now, we know hearing is in our ears, but there's also some fluid-filled canals more internal from our eardrums called the semicircular canals, and they're oriented in all different directions, and they tell us information about where our head is. So anytime that we move our head, it's telling our brain where we are. Our vestibular sense is really sensitive. So if we start to trip over something, our vestibular sense is one of the first things that fires to our brain and goes, "You're falling," and helps your body respond to catch yourself. If you've ever experienced vertigo, that's actually a dysfunction of the vestibular sense. It's an over-responsive vestibular sense or a miscalibrated one that leads to that vertigo sensation. If you've been on a boat and then you get off of that boat and you still kind of feel like you're rocking, again, your vestibular sense is learning to recalibrate from being on that boat where you're in motion to, oh, now you're on solid ground. We use the vestibular sense to help calm babies by rocking them, right, to help them calm down, or putting them in the car where that vestibular sense is activated from a riding kind of motion, a very linear pattern. In general, linear movement is going to be calming to the body. It's activating the calming vestibular input for most children. And then anything that's spinning, like spinning on a tire swing, spinning around in circles, ring around the rosy is going to be more energizing. It's going to be more waking to that central nervous system and even lead to some dizziness sometimes too, right? The last sense we're going to talk about is interoception, which is our sense of what's going on inside our bodies. And this is another sense that's still developing with a lot of young children. So interoception tells us when we're hungry, when we're full, when we need to use the bathroom, right? It's really important in potty training. It tells us when our heart is racing. We can feel that heavy beat of our heart. It tells us when we have a stomach ache, when we have a fever, just don't quite feel right. That's all interoception sense. So it's our internal organs communicating with our brain, and our brain kind of sending signals back and forth to know what's going on inside of our bodies. So with all of these senses, it's important to recognize that we all perceive sensory input differently. I might love spicy food, which I really do. Hot wings are one of my favorite foods. But if you hate anything spicy, Becky hates anything spicy, co-founder of Adapt and Grow, there's nothing I can do to try to say, but it's great, I think it's amazing. She goes, I don't like it. It's not for me. Because we all experience the world and have different sensory preferences. We all know the kids or friends who are total bookworms. They love just to sit down and read a book, and they're happy doing that. And then we know the kids that are future track stars because they're running circles around your house and living room. They just gotta move. Our bodies all have different needs, and those are reflected in how we move and what kind of sensory input we like throughout the day. So all this is to say that there's so much happening with our world. We learn about our world, about our environment through the sensory input that we take in through all 8 of these senses, and that we use that information to learn and to help our bodies and brains regulate. Hopefully you found this helpful today. Again, I'm from Adapt and Grow. We're local to Richmond, Virginia. We have an Instagram account as well as a Facebook page. Instagram is adapt.grow, and we love sharing resources with parents just to help you best help your child. Thanks for joining today.